Grendel actually went through a massive glow up a couple of years back, from being an absolute doo-doo water Warframe to a well-rounded frame. The rework was so good, people stopped playing Grendel altogether because his Helminth ability was such a huge staple in a lot of builds. Nourish was everywhere, and it had no requirement for you to eat enemies to use it. Click button and you had viral damage that affects your weapons and some of your abilities, massive energy multiplier, and viral retaliation damage. It was the best. Then it got hit with the infamous nerf hammer. What did the nerf do? Nothing. Nourish is still an amazing Helminth, and Grendel withered into non-existent, except for a few people who still play him. But now, with the Cope May and the 5 Fates, we got our hands on quite a few augments, and something that could make Grendel somewhat relevant. What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new Warframe video, coming at you with a look at the new Grendel Augment, Gastro. This augment is for his 4th ability, where regurgitated enemies bounce up to 3 times and create gas clouds, dealing damage over time and proccing gas. There's a very strong synergy with this ability. But first, let's understand a bit of his kit so you can see the strengths and weaknesses of this build. His 4th ability, Regurgitate, sends out consumed enemies as projectile vomit, as they are coated in Grendel's bile. These bile-coated enemies explode and deal toxic damage, as they armor strip enemies. Now, of course, you cannot use this ability unless you've consumed enemies with his first ability, which kinda still hurts his entire kit, because without Feast, he cannot use Nourish or Regurgitate. Now, why does it hurt his kit? Because 1, it has an animation lock that cannot be cancelled. It has to do the full animation even though there are no enemies left to consume. And enemies that are consumed do take damage over time. And also when using Nourish or his 3rd ability, this damage over time does kill off enemies that are consumed. And this does make him annoyingly hard to play in a lot of missions, especially Corpus, Infested, and low-level missions, as those enemies don't have armor and lower EHP. So if you're ever going to use this Grendel build, eat and vomit, and use Nourish in between. You cannot save enemies in your belly to use it for later, or they go to waste. Now, going back to Regurgitate and the Augment, the gas clouds produced do have the same properties as the gas status effect. They trigger on enemies, produce a cloud that can trigger on another enemy, and when enemies die, they leave behind gas clouds that start the whole cycle all over again. And because this is the 4th ability augment, you deal both toxin and gas damage. And that toxin attack actually armor strips enemies. So then your gas damage can deal even more damage. One of the OG combos back in the days. Further boosting this ability's damage. Also, to no one's surprise, because this is an ability DPS build that already has built-in Nourish and armor strip, grouping with the Sentinel, and the gas clouds will give it that juicy quadratic scaling damage. The only obvious Helminth is Roar. So the entire damage meta synergy all in one setup. Roar allows you to deal more damage and double dip with your status effects damage over time, boosting the gas and toxin damage over time. I mean, this is a very simple synergy. So let's see how it's put together. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, here we are in the simulacrum to showcase the builds. Starting off with the Archon Shards. I got 2 Townforge Speed Shards because we don't like letting animations shine. And of course, 1 Townforge Red Shard to run off the strength, but to be honest, put in more Tau Shards if you have some more. I ran out of Tau Shards. I have 4 Warframes with full red Tau Shards, so if you'll excuse me, I need to farm some more, you know what I'm saying? So let's showcase how this build works. And because it's Grendel, I can't use Nourish unless I eat something. I can't use Regurgitate unless I eat something. So let's spawn in some Steel Path, Modified, Corrupted Heavy Gunners. Now, as soon as I spawn them, you're gonna see some radial sucking. That's because of the Cordon. Right there, we sucked in 5 enemies. And we're just gonna boom. That's without Roar, by the way. That's without Roar. Because they're grouped up, you're gonna get that quadratic scaling. With more enemies means you do more damage. Because gas clouds will spawn more gas clouds from enemies affected by gas. As you can see, each enemy leaves behind their own gas clouds. Here we are in the Void, just to showcase against a variety of enemies. See, we got that grouping. We're gonna suck in some enemies. Do our alternate fire. That's going to give us some strength. use our nourish, use our roar, and we regurgitate on enemies. We suck in, follow up with more regurgitation. The damage is very, very satisfying, even though it has very nasty sound effects. The best part about Feast is that you can also suck up energy and health orbs. So, alternate fire, you get that strength increase. We're inside this aura right here. Roar, boom. Anything that walks into this gas cloud will also get their body procced with gas. You see how they're walking in? Enemies walking in. They're dying from all that gas damage. Look how they're getting armor strip when my projectile vomit is bouncing in between them. And this is the other issue. So let's say there's no enemies and you're using your feast. Unfortunately, you cannot cancel it unless you actually go through the entire animation. Come here, buddy. He's already dying to my gas. Bro! He's not moving! All right, he's gonna die now. Yep. He just died from gas DOTs. Okay, looking at the build. Now for the arcanes, I got Arcane Guardian for that juicy 900 armor when I take damage, easily triggered on shield damage and health damage. But of course, it's going to go through our shields before it even gets to our health. And Grendel is quite healthy with a decent amount of 1,200 health and 400 armor. Pretty good. And the second arcane is Mold Augmented. This gives us that 60% strength after 250 kills. Starting off with the aura, I'm going to go with Growing Power. This gives me 25% strength increase when I proc a status effect with my weapons. Easily done with my secondary weapon. So whenever I need a bigger roar, I'm going to use the alternate fire on my tome. That will trigger a status effect to give me the 25% strength increase. And boom, we get a nice strong roar. The Exilus, foot maxing. Easy as that. And because this is a base steel path build, and it's all about health tanking, yada yada, we're going to go with a double umbral setup. So umbral intensify for the strength and umbral vitality for the, well, vitality. If you feel like you have enough health, you can go with umbral fiber. That's up to you. I have 4 dashes, but I'll only be using 3 of them. Starting off with prime flow for the large energy pool, and we're gonna have our range increases with stretch and augur reach. Of course, if you're using a sentinel that uses electric abilities, you could run Archon stretch, but I'm not doing that for this build. With the V polarity, I'll be going with primed continuity. For those who are thinking, why don't you run Archon continuity? My guy, you're already armor stripping. This is redundant, and it's not going to do anything for you except consume 2 more capacity. I'll be running adaptation for that damage resistance against damage types, Delta Me, which stacks up to 90%. So pretty good with a health tanking setup. And then finally, we're going to be using the GASTRO Augment. This is for the 3-time bounce on the regurgitated projectile vomit and the gas AoE, the tome. So this is a strength increase tome. We got Vomit Invocation for the strength, modded for viral and whatever, it really doesn't matter as long as you have Vom Invocation, Prime Fulmination with some multi-shot and fire rate. The arcane can be whatever you want. I went with secondary fortifier just for the memes because it really doesn't matter. For the companion, we got Nautilus Prime. Modded with Cordon, of course. Guardian, of course. Don't forget your Manifold Bond, so it resets these when you kill enemies with 3 or more status effects. Very important. Also got Coolant Leak here. This unleashes an AoE blast of cold when multiple enemies are nearby. Easily done when Cordon triggers. So this slows down enemies, and when you trigger Coolant Leak, it also deals your weapons elemental status effects. So right there, you see, it dealt that AoE burst. It's got cold, viral radiation, and electric, because my weapon has viral radiation and electric. So that's pretty nifty. That trigger also helps me reset Manifold Bond without triggering multiple status effects with my weapons. All right, Shield Charger just for the shield regeneration, Medi Ray for the health regeneration, and this is the Coolant Leak build. And the weapon I decided to use is the Tazakor. The Tazakor is an electric beam rifle weapon. It is pretty much the Amprex. Viral and your radiation mod, you're chilling. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the projectile vomit hawk tour.
What the fuck? Ew! Bro!
Grendel build. So yeah, that has been it from me. I do hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video. And if you want to hawk tour on enemies, you go right ahead. I know it's disgusting and it sounds nasty.
We don't do that here.
But for more Warframe content, streams, and so much more, do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace. Bye-bye now.